welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're really getting into it, digging into business fraud.
Ooh, exciting.
Right, how to spot it, how to fight it, how to avoid it, all that good stuff. You sent over some really interesting stuff from Singular Law Group, articles, resources, even stuff from their website, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We'll unpack it all, look at scenarios businesses face, legal options, the whole 9 yards. Even little details can end up being super important.
I'm already stressed and we haven't even seen a contract yet. This article, The Impact of Fraud on Businesses and How to Litigate It, it grabbed me right away. It talks about that feeling, when you realize you've been tricked. Even if you're not new to business, that betrayal still hits hard.
Yeah, it's interesting the article brings that up because we don't talk about that emotional side much. Being a fraud victim, it can really shake you, even if you're okay financially. And what often makes it worse, the article points out, is it's not always upfront trickery, it's broken promises after a contract's signed.
So the classic bait and switch. Ugh. Give me an example. What kind of situations?
Okay, so the article, it gives a few. Imagine a company, they puff up their connections to get a deal, right?
Yeah.
Or an employee secretly sharing info with competitors. Nightmare stuff.
I'm already mentally writing cease and desist letters, but that's where a good contract comes in, yeah.
Exactly. It stresses. As frustrating as these situations are, contract law can often tackle them head on. That's why a solid agreement, and crucially, having a legal pro look it over before you sign, that's huge. Preventative medicine for your business, basically.
Adding find a lawyer to my to-do list right now. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, or however that goes.
Couldn't agree more. Better safe than sorry, especially with something as important as a contract.
And speaking of things that keep business owners up at night, data breaches. This section of the article, The Impact of Fraud on Businesses and How to Litigate It, sent shivers down my spine. And for good reason, it highlights how a data breach isn't just about losing data, it's about shattered trust. Imagine having to tell your customers their personal information has been compromised. The hit to your reputation could be irreparable.
Absolutely. And the article doesn't sugarcoat the legal and financial fallout either. We're talking lawsuits, potentially even class action ones, from customers who entrusted you with their data. It's a stark reminder that cybersecurity is no longer just an IT issue. It's a core business risk that demands serious attention.
So it's not just hackers you have to worry about, but legal action from your own customers. That's intense. What really struck me was the example they gave of a company being hit by a virus that already had a patch available. They just hadn't implemented it. Talk about adding insult to injury. It seems like proactive cybersecurity is absolutely crucial, but what can businesses actually do to prepare? Is it all about having fancy software, or is there more to it?
While the right technical safeguards are definitely essential, the article emphasizes a more holistic approach. Think of it like a security audit, but for your digital world. Bringing in a cybersecurity firm to assess your vulnerabilities and suggest improvements can be a game changer. They can pinpoint your weak points and recommend solutions tailored to your specific needs and risk tolerance.
So it's kind of like having a business plan, but for your data instead of your products or services. You wouldn't launch a business without a plan, so why treat your data any differently?
You hit the nail on the head. And just like a business plan, your cybersecurity strategy needs to adapt as your business grows and evolves. What works for a small startup with a handful of employees and customers might not cut it for a larger company with more complex systems and a bigger target on its back. The article stresses that this isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. It requires ongoing vigilance and adaptation.
Speaking of evolving, this whole conversation makes you wonder, what new forms of fraud are popping up as technology changes? Are we talking about things like deepfakes, AI scams, and threats we haven't even imagined yet?
It's a valid concern. As technology advances, so do the methods employed by fraudsters. We're already seeing increasingly sophisticated phishing scams that can trick even the most cautious individuals. Ransomware attacks can cripple entire systems, holding businesses hostage until a ransom is paid. And yes, the use of AI to create convincing deepfakes for malicious purposes is a growing threat.
Okay, that's both fascinating and terrifying. It's like something out of a science fiction thriller. But before we get too lost in the world of cybercrime, let's shift gears for a second. The article also stresses the importance of honesty, even when you're the victim of fraud. That seems a little counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It does on the surface, but it's absolutely critical. The article makes it clear that when you're dealing with fraud, whether you're pursuing legal action or reporting it to the authorities, transparency is key. And yes, that means being upfront about your own missteps, even if it's uncomfortable.
They even talk about depositions and police interviews, situations that would make even the most seasoned business owner sweat a little.
Exactly. And that's why having legal counsel, especially a criminal defense lawyer, if there's even a slim chance of facing charges, is non-negotiable. They can help you navigate those choppy legal waters, make sure your rights are protected, and fight for your best interests every step of the way.
Honesty and sound legal advice, two must-haves when dealing with the fallout of fraud. Got it. But before we wrap up, what really stood out to you from this article? What's the key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with?
For me, it's how the article subtly shifts our perspective. We often think of fraud in terms of the financial hit, which makes sense. But the article really highlights that emotional toll, the sense of betrayal, the damage to your reputation, the erosion of trust, all things that can be just as devastating, if not more so, in the long run.
It's so true. It's not just about dollars and cents. It's about the human cost of these crimes, the anxiety, the stress, the feeling of vulnerability that has a ripple effect.
Absolutely. And that's something to remember whether you're a business owner, an employee, or just a consumer trying to navigate the world. Fraud can have far-reaching consequences that go way beyond just the financial.
It's a powerful reminder to be vigilant, but also to have compassion for those who've been affected. We've all fallen for something at some point, whether it's a deal that seems too good to be true or a scam that's cleverly disguised.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as we rely more and more on digital transactions and remote collaborations, the opportunities for fraudsters to exploit those vulnerabilities will only increase. It's a constant game of cat and mouse.
Which brings me to my final thought. This deep dive has been quite a journey. We've explored everything from handshake deals gone wrong to the wild west of cybersecurity and even touched on the often overlooked human cost of it all. It makes you wonder, in a world where technology is evolving at warp speed, how will the landscape of business fraud evolve alongside it? What new challenges and opportunities will emerge? That's something to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. Until next time, stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay safe out there.